got 5 gallons of fuel.
Do we have a fuel gauge?
No, you gotta look at the can in the back.
Oh.
The sketch level of Stinkbug has actually come way down over the past couple months, but there's still one thing I really don't like, and that's what I want to deal with this weekend. That thing I don't like is obviously the fuel system. I don't like how we hold our fuel, and I don't like how we pump our fuel. This truck has a very cheap electric fuel pump in it. It's like $7. I don't feel like trusting it is the right move. So I've had this on the shelf for as long as I've had the truck. It is a replacement Carter mechanical fuel pump. This is where we're gonna start today. We gotta get the old one off. All right, so under here you can kind of see the current state of our fuel system now. The factory mechanical pump is right here. It's got one of this cool like glass bowl filters on it. We're gonna pull this off, put that replacement in its place. We'll pull this line, which will go to the inlet side of our new replacement mechanical fuel pump. We'll come out the outlet, back to the regulator, because this is set at like 3 pounds, and then this line goes to the carb. That way, we can put the electric pump on a switch, use it if we need it, but run the engine off of the mechanical and have a little bit more trust in it. Wow, that wasn't very tight. All right, well that came out fairly easy. Here's the old, I'm not gonna say original, but old pump versus the replacement pump. The shape of the arm seems to be the same. I'm gonna have to get it started by hand. There we go. New pump is in. I'm gonna test it before we go any farther. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this line off the bottom of our regulator, which goes back to the tank with the electric pump in line. I'm gonna hook it to the inlet side of this. I'm gonna grab a short chunk of whatever garbage hose, put it in some sort of container. Then I'm gonna hop in and I'm gonna crank the motor with the ignition off, which means the electric pump isn't gonna run, the coil's not gonna be hot, it won't start, it'll just pump. And I wanna make sure it'll pull fuel through that filter, through the electric pump, and from the tank, which is all the way in the back, before we go any farther. That should work, right? You guys watch, okay? Oh, now it's doing that. There it is. Is it pumping? Was it pumping fuel? Not yet. All right. It might take a little bit. There it's going. That's a good enough test for me to keep moving. All right, now that we know the mechanical pump will pull fuel from back here, it's time for the most exciting part of this project. Let me show you. This is the cheapest fuel cell you can buy on Amazon. They say it's 17 gallons. That's literally impossible based on math. It should be about 15, 14 and change. It's an upright style. It's got a sender. It's gonna fit perfectly in the back of Stinkbug, and it's gonna look like it's supposed to be there instead of like we strapped a fuel jug. All right, so for $115, this is what you get. 15-gallon cell, we went over that. It's got a nice fill, O-ring cap, a -8 feed, a -8 return, and a -8 vent. Now the ad says that those are -10. They're not. It also has included a 0 to 90 ohm sender with the arm in there. No foam, no nothing. This is just a basic box. One thing I do like, if you look at it, notice how there's no weld here or here. They formed this piece to reduce the amount of welding likely, which I'm into because that also reduces the places it can leak. Truly though, the welds don't look bad. I can't weld aluminum this good. So my plan is that tank is gonna go right here. It should fit between this. I kind of hate this. It might come out today also. I'm gonna put the filler on this side. So you pull up the pump, put 14, 15 gallons in, and you're off to the races. I'm gonna sweep this out and then we'll lift that tank up here and see what it looks, maybe make some marks, decide if this is staying. This could also be a part of our hold down. So I was thinking fill on that side. Yeah, that basically. Probably get a strap through here and like a strap through here, make it look somewhat symmetrical. I hate this. Be hard to cut. I might have to get a Sawzall in there or something. I'm not sure how this is gonna go. Poorly, if I had to guess. Don't want to do that. I ruined so many blades by doing this. I don't know if I've ever worn one out. I just bend them up, throw them away. This is probably heavy. There she is, the Iron Cross. No, not really. I'm gonna save that. That channel's probably good for something, but I think it looks better for mounting. Here's what I'm thinking. Best way for me to explain it is think battery hold down, but this is the battery. Small piece of angle to capture this corner, small piece of angle to capture that corner, strap across, match set. We'll do 2 of those. Then we'll build bars that come down and tie into the cradle that we're gonna make on the floor. So I'm building this in my head as I go a little bit, which is fine, but I know the first thing I need is 4 2-inch pieces of 1-inch angle. Got my 4 2-inch pieces. Next, I need 2 7¼ pieces of this 1-inch flat bar. 2. So those pieces we just cut are going to be the top part of the hold down. I'm going to measure equal distant in from both ends, and I'm going to modify these ones so it doesn't look so stupid. Because right now, these little weld bungs for the fittings get into this, so I'm going to trim a little radius in both this side and that side. This is going to set our distance from the edge. We'll match it on this side. Got my top hold downs built. Now I'm gonna build the bottom cradle. So I need 2 16-inch pieces and 2 7-inch pieces out of this piece, and I should have enough. What's that, 46? Yes. It's gonna take about all of it, but that's all right. This is gonna be what welds to the bed, kind of forms the cradle. If my bench was the bed of the truck, piece of angle, there's the matching 18 on the other side. That's gonna eliminate front, back, side to side, and then we'll build a strap that ties in on both sides. Consider this positionally where it's going to be. Before we do any sort of welding, I'm gonna mark out holes that I need to drill on these. These are the 2, not ends, but the front and back pieces. All right, so here is my thoughts. These are the front and back braces. Countersunk 1/4-20s, the tank goes against this side. As this sits against the tank, then we'll run a strap that bolts here up to the clampy part that we made earlier. We'll have 4 of those, tighten it down, and that will secure the tank. They'll be welded on the top, bolted on the bottom, so if we ever want to take them off, we just unbolt, lift that whole clamp apparatus up, and the tank will lift right up to. For those of you that have been worried about how this aluminum is gonna rub on the steel, don't worry, one step ahead of you. I do have some rubber isolator stuff. Okay, I almost made a big mistake and welded this stuff in without putting my rubber isolator on, which would not have accounted for the thickness and probably made it not fit. I think the edges are in place enough to go ahead, and I'll pull the tank out. Hopefully this stuff didn't move too bad when I was burning it in. I heard some pops and creaks, but I think it was honestly from the bed itself. Oh, like we thought about it even. The idea is something like this on both sides, right? Oh, hold on. I just thought of something that was really dumb. If this is welded up here and that's bolted right there, I have to bend it a little bit to get it off because it's a stud. Do we care about that? A little bit, yeah, because we want it tight. Not that I think I'm taking this thing out a whole bunch, but I do need to take these out to weld them and then put them on. There's probably gonna be enough flex. I think we'll be okay. We're gonna try it. Little bit of an oversight, not that big of a deal. Like I said, this thing, it's not like you take your gas tank out a bunch, but we do need to get it in there the first time. Now, after I shut the camera off last night, I did stay out here a little bit longer, and I got the other strap made. Plan of attack today is to plumb it first. So this is kind of what I'm thinking. I had a short piece of -8, so I went ahead and built a 90 out just to a straight, and I'll show you how I'm gonna connect that later. What I wanna do now is get the tank secured down. And I was thinking last night, I don't think I'm gonna isolate here for the sender to work and just for general static electricity safety purposes. This tank should probably be grounded to the frame so it doesn't build up static electricity like with fuel slosh or anything like that. So we're gonna attach here, which is grounded through this plate. So I'm gonna not isolate this, and I painted the brackets, but I ground the bottom off, so they'll touch the aluminum here, they'll touch the aluminum here. That'll act as a ground for our sender and our safety ground. All right, that is very secure. And then my thought was with this, something like this, just to kind of keep it looking like this was all thought about, which it was, but you know, you want it to look that way. That's kind of the idea that we're going for. So this is what's going to be the carb feed, because there's the dip tube in this one. I think what we're going to do is finish plumbing all of this, and then we got to wire the fuel gauge to the sender and deal with these other two ports. We have that dash 8 coming out of the tank to that section I braided, right? One end's got a 90, the other end I put just a straight on. Dash 8 is gigantic fuel line for most things, this included. So what I'm gonna do, because that's just the size of the fittings on the tank, I'm running that dash 8 out the back, then I'm gonna hook into this little Red Horse Performance filter that I had. On the other end, that's where we're gonna make our conversion to 5/16. This is the other end of that dash 8. It lines up almost perfectly with where I had this filter, which doesn't really mean anything, but it is kind of nice because I'll be able to reuse this sectional line. That Red Horse filter will go here, dash 8 in on one side, 5/16 barb out on the other side. So the out of that barb will come right to this electric fuel pump, which actually means we don't have to change that much. We only have to change from here back. Let me jam this in here. Okay. I'll end up zip tying something, but that actually lays pretty nice. Okay, so believe it or not, everything's actually done up to here now. We weren't really changing that much. We're just changing the source, more or less. Remember I put this short piece on yesterday? I think I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna tag that Wix filter in right here, and then we gotta come to here and we're plumbed. Back here now, a little bit more work to do. This is easy. This is just a cap for the return. We need to figure out what I want to do with the vent. Now, a lot of guys will run a fitting out of here and just a little bit of line loop, because this is just to pass air. There's no fluid coming through here. It's a vent and a rollover valve in case old Stinkbug gets wild when we end up on the roof one day. Let me dig through my fitting pile and see what I got. We're probably not going to spend a bunch of time on this. I just don't want it to be facing straight up, basically. There we go. Okay, plumbing is complete. Out cap vent. Now we need to wire this sender, which I'm going to do before I put fuel in it because I want to make sure it reads 0. And then I want to make sure it changes when there is liquid in here. And we need to interrupt the fuel pump with a switch. Those are the last two things. Then we're going to put gas in this thing and we're going to see if it runs. So I found a perfect spot to mount the switch for the fuel pump, and it's where the old emergency brake lever used to go. And that's going to interrupt the 12 to our electric fuel pump. This was the absolute cheapest fuel gauge that you can buy on Amazon. So I don't have high hopes for accuracy or resolution. What I'm looking for is almost empty versus not almost empty. If this tells us that, I'll take it. I'm going to put this where our ammeter is because we don't use it. It's just a dead gauge sitting there. This should be the same size, so I'm hoping I can just sneak it. It'll end up being in the middle, doesn't really matter. Sneak it in the middle and we'll have a fuel gauge. So I'm gonna read my owner's manual, figure out what color wires go where. Got the fuel gauge in there. It looks pretty much the same. The white face kind of matches, and without illumination, you'll never know. The tank is still empty. I'm gonna turn the battery on, turn the key on. I expect to see that gauge like jump a little bit, probably, or at least move. Then we're gonna shut it back off. We're gonna dump what's left in that jug, which is probably 3.5 gallons. Turn it back on, see if it reads different. Okay, battery's on. Now we're gonna go key on, see if anything moves. Oh, uh-oh. It read full. Huh. It's not full though. It's totally empty. It's a 0 to 90 ohm sender. It's obviously responding. I think we got to try to get the sender out of the tank before we put fuel in it and move it and see if we're going to have backwards fuel. All right, so I've got this thing rigged up. Remember, this was sold as a 0 to 90. You can't see it, but look here. See how that's reading about 64? That is what would be tank completely empty, okay? Float all the way down. Watch as I bring it up. I get wildly different. Depending on how I move my finger, resistance jumps up to 360. So, of course our gauge is reading wrong because it's supposed to be 0 to 90. We're almost always above 90, just sitting here. This is the mechanism, right? There's so much slop in here that amount of movement is a couple hundred ohms. What I'm saying is, I can't believe it, but this El Cheapo tank has an El Cheapo sending unit in it that isn't gonna work for us. Surprise, surprise. This sender's junk. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. I can't blame it too much. It was a $115 fuel cell, including the sender. So for today, we're gonna ignore it. The nice part is there's no foam or nothing in that tank, and it's just a big rectangular box. So finding a quality 0 to 90 sender shouldn't be that hard. I really only need this piece. I can make this float work with almost anything. But this is just so sloppy and gross that even if it worked for a minute, it wasn't gonna work long. We're gonna put gas in it and see if at least the mechanical pump and stuff works. It doesn't go all the way to the bottom, and that's one thing we're gonna have to be aware of. All right, a major component of this project was the mechanical fuel pump, and we need to see if it'll pull fuel by itself from our new tank. So what I'm gonna do is turn the battery on, but not the ignition, and stomp on the foot starter, and just let it crank and crank and crank, and we're gonna look right here and see if we get fuel flowing to the regulator. If it makes it that far, we can safely assume that it's gonna make it to the carb, and then we will turn the ignition on. I want to let it sit and run for a while. It's probably going to take a while. Oh, it looks like it's moving fluid. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the ignition on, and we're going to let it run, and I'm not going to touch the electric pump, and we'll see if it'll sit here and run on the mechanical. It's pumping fuel. It's also showing like 0 fuel pressure. Oh, it's climbing now. It's probably got to work all the air out. It's only reading about a pound of fuel pressure, which honestly might be enough. Okay, well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Tiger's Garage. We got a brand new fuel system. We got a brand new mechanical fuel pump, and we have a backup electric pump. All of that works. The only roadblock we ran into was a cheap fuel sender that is reading wildly different values. Not a big deal. We'll just make sure the tank's full. We ain't going that far anyway. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Tiger's Garage.